So New Bleach is good. Really good. Like, almost too good. I often set kinda low expectations for things because if said thing ends up being better, you're like, nice. But if it ends up being as bad as you thought, you aren't super disappointed. I expected to get a C on my test, but I got a B.
Nice.
However, Bleach 1000 Year Blood War is like expecting to get a B on your test, and instead the teacher fucking quits and gives you their salary. I finished the original Bleach anime about a week before 1000 Year Blood War started airing, so I think my recollection of its events are pretty up to date. The Fullbring arc showed a pretty massive increase in animation quality from the rest of the show, and still holds up quite well even today. But the 1000 Year Blood War is on a completely different level. I'm not even kidding, the first 13 episodes are my favorite of any anime I have watched the entire year. This shit is even currently #1 on Mal, which, will probably last another week or so once the Full Metal fans review bomb it, but still that should be saying something. I'm gonna do my best to avoid major spoilers, but if I do, sorry, here's your warning. Obviously, the animation quality is going to improve. It's been 10 years since the last arc of Bleach aired, but, fuck.
It's good. That's good shit right there.
I love the overall shift to a much darker animation style. Even in daytime shots, the colors of the environment seem much more muted while the blacks and grays are more pronounced. But then at the same time, the use of color is the best we've had in the entire show. We still have great background shots. The one that sticks out to me is Ichigo fighting Aburn, a super sick looking red sky sunset that provides a great contrast for the blue and black abilities, but again just has a darker feel to it. It's much different looking than the original Bleach, where honestly everything seems a little too bright in most scenes. The one shot that gave me kind of OG vibes was when Shino and Yuki are talking with the 6th seed outside of the Shoryu Gate. It seems bright and calm, like almost there's a bit of peace after the first initial Quincy attack, like we're going back to normality. But as soon as they invade again, that light quickly fades. I took this as almost the animators telling us, yeah, this isn't going to be that Bleach. Every ability gets a massive visual upgrade, and this makes each Shikai and Bankai we've seen so far feel much stronger and more imposing than it did in the past. Literally 5 minutes in, Ichigo pulls out the Getsuga Tensho that is better looking than practically anyone he used in the original anime.
Getsuga Tensho!
And since like 75% of these first 13 episodes are fight scenes, we get to see these abilities on full display with a shit ton of new ones we haven't even seen animated before. I also believe this is the first usage of CGI we've seen so far in Bleach, but it's pretty infrequent and honestly doesn't even look that bad. But then just to think that 99% of these scenes were animated without any CGI is kinda mind-blowing. But even crazier is that they managed to make Inoue's tits somehow even bigger. Normally, this shift in animation style might be a bit jarring, but it fits perfectly for this arc. This is by far the darkest thematically Bleach has ever been, and you need to be able to display that through the animation, and I think Studio Pierrot executed perfectly. And I think they did this so well because the anime was airing at a midnight slot, making it uncensored.
Yo, holy shit, he dead!
Censorship has been something that has plagued Bleach in the past. For its time, it's still considered a pretty violent show, but when you look back at it, it's just a bunch of arms getting cut off, with maybe the most shocking scene being Aizen pinned to the wall, or maybe the exposed bone from Soifan's arm. According to Tite Kubo, there was a rule in Shonen Jump at the time that only end of serialization work should be made into late night anime, but that has since changed, so now the anime can follow the original content. Fight scenes can be more violent, and mature things, such as Halle Bell's design, can finally be animated for us to appreciate. And might I just say,
Nice.
Also, I just want to point out, I don't want the show just to be gory for the sake of being gory, but I do feel that a lot of Shonen Jump shows dumb down the violence. It was done more so in the early to late 2000s, but even a more recent show like Black Clover has people getting hit with swords and having that shit look like a blunt object. The violence in Bleach just shows that the Quincy's are the strongest force the Soul Reapers have faced so far. You tell me what has more impact. An enemy comes down, performs an attack, a bit of blood spurts out, and that person falls over. Or the enemy performs an attack and the person's head fucking explodes.
So no head?
Killing was something we saw in OG Bleach, but it was primarily for enemies like the Espada, and honestly didn't happen that frequently as a lot of them are still alive. Now, let's just say Studio Pierrot is taking the blood part of Thousand Year Blood War quite literally. But as I mentioned, it's not just violent for the sake of being violent, it fits the overall narrative of the Thousand Year Blood War. And man, I don't know about you guys, but Bleach's story finally feels interesting again. We started off so good with the Soul Society arc, and honestly the beginning of the Arrancar stuff was pretty decent. It just dragged on forever, and Aizen ended up being kinda eh.
I've won. Exactly as planned.
The Fullbring was a nice change, but some parts of it just felt like a filler arc to me, so it's nice that we're back to some serious shit. What we had learned so far about the relationship between the Soul Reapers and the Quincy's was that they hate each other, and all of the Quincy's were murdered besides Ishida and his father. Murdered, at least temporarily, and after 1,000 years they are pretty fucking pissed. This just hits so much harder than any other battle arc we've seen so far. All of these characters that we have never seen just show up and are infinitely stronger than almost every Soul Reaper. And it's not just the leaders, but practically every Quincy is stronger. We see in the fights the realization of just how much weaker the Soul Reapers are. Bleach has had plenty of serious fights in the past, but the thing that's different this time is that seriousness continues after the fights are over. Everyone knows that the next time may be their final chance, and they treat it as so. Part of this might be that Bleach is no longer releasing weekly, so there's no need for any filler content and we just get the good stuff consistently. But just in general, they've toned down on the lightheartedness of the show. Most shonen animes, and especially the ones of the Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece era, have their fights in action, but also have a lot of comedic relief, and at points is extremely jarring and takes away from the tone of the show. So when I say I thank the fucking heavens that we no longer have these goofy moments where the animation goes to that chibi bullshit and just completely ruins the moment. No, instead we get those moments, but just maybe with a sound effect or a camera zoom to not take away from the scene that we're in. And all along with this stuff that's happening in the Soul Society, we get some real backstory on Ichigo and what he actually is, and meet some characters we haven't seen in a while. It puts the pieces together from a lot of the questions we had from the OG release, and certain events now make more sense. The flow of the story just seems much more polished, and I think we can thank Tite Kubo's involvement with the anime production. When dealing with the adaptation of the manga, you want to try and keep it as accurate to the source material as possible, but working with the author allows you to make certain changes that may translate better into the anime. Since the source material for Bleach has been completed for over 6 years, Kubo is in a much different stage as a creator. He himself probably wishes that things were different in the manga, and we can see his current feelings on how the story of Bleach should play out. This is confirmed through an interview he did on the production of the series. He said the first step is to determine the overall flow and how much story will be in each episode, and then he has his requests. He said that they can cut comedy scenes as they seem fit, because in an animation with sound, if the comedy is the same as the original work, it would destroy the atmosphere. Then they check the script for each episode and he can tell them how he wants a certain part to be or a certain scene that he wants to have included. Apparently, there's already been parts that have played out much differently than the manga, so this is almost a new experience for everyone who watches. There is one glaring issue with Bleach. This fuck. I've heard this guy's name like over 10 times and still don't know what the hell it is.
Yuhabaha. Yuhabaha.
Yuhabaha.
Yuhabaha. Yuhabaha. Yuhabaha.
Yuhabaha.
Yuhabaha.
Yuhavach? Yuhavaha? You better find yourself an easier name.
What's your name?
Yuhabaha.
That fucking sucks!
So from this point on, I will now be referring to this man as Greg. But when looking at the show, there isn't really anything that I can say I didn't enjoy. There's some small things like Rukia being completely useless and this dude that Kenpachi said he killed, in fact, not being killed. But man, the amount of hype, emotion, and just overall enjoyment I've gotten from these first 13 episodes is more than any show in a while. I used to be huge on binging shows, but since I've switched to watching weekly because nothing has really scratched that itch where I need to watch everything immediately. And even though I won't be able to binge this, as there's no way I'm waiting for each episode to be out, I truly want to. I wish I could go into detail about every moment of the show because they are all bangers, but I don't think I could do it justice. It's truly an experience that just needs to be watched and digested for yourself. It also makes me wonder what it would be like if all of Bleach was animated just like this. We've seen Studio Pierrot do their special anniversary animations for Naruto, but man, just imagine an entire uncensored Bleach anime with Tite Kubo there to assist. One can only dream, and unfortunately the next part of the arc won't be airing until July of this year, but if it's going to be the same quality as these first 13 episodes, I think that's well worth the wait. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Did you watch the first part of the 1000-Year Blood War? Let me know in the comments. I know I said I was going to be more active, but then I was out of town for the holiday and then came down with a pretty bad cold, so...
Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
yeah, I didn't want to record this when I sounded like I'd been chain smoking since 13. If you did enjoy the video, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to support me further, the link to my Patreon is in the description. There's a bunch of cool rewards like Discord badges, exclusive content, picking stream games, early access to videos, and shoutouts at the end, like for Killer Bunny, Leon, Little PK, Nova, Peppy Jewel, Nicholas Gutierrez, TechRob, and Chupa. That's all for this time. Hope to see you here again.